Hello and welcome to For Flying Out Loud, the podcast that aims to inspire, empower and helps all of our listeners to dream bigger. I'm Andrew Neofitu and I'm thrilled to bring you another powerful episode. Aviation has always been about pushing boundaries, defying expectations and proving what's possible. But what if I told you that some of the most inspiring pilots out there aren't just overcoming the challenges of flight, but life-changing injuries too? This episode of the For Flying Out Loud podcast is brought to you by Flight Deck Wingman, expert support for qualified pilots to pass your airline selection process. 2025 sees the launch of Flight Deck Wingman's new Wingman Academy, featuring online learning with in-depth videos, downloadable training aids and much, much more. Flight Deck Wingman offers the most comprehensive competency pilot selection development anywhere in the world, and we'd be proud to help you find your dream job on the flight deck. Learn more by visiting flightdeckwingman.com. Today we're diving into the incredible story of Wings for Warriors, a charity giving wounded veterans a future worth fighting for, literally. From one of our guests who survived a sniper attack in Afghanistan and found purpose in the cockpit, to another who overcame the loss of a limb to achieve his dream of becoming a commercial pilot. From battlefield to flight deck, my two guests today are proving that resilience, determination and a second chance can take you to the skies. So buckle up, this is one that you don't want to miss. Today it's a great pleasure to welcome Sam Taylor and Lewis Farrell to For Flying Out Loud. So guys, thank you very much for joining me. How are you doing?
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Not too bad.
Good to
Thanks
see
for
you.
having us.
And I should say here at the beginning of this podcast now that this is probably about take 20 of this episode, because we've overcome various technical issues. Lewis even diving out to grab a microphone from his local store this morning because the microphone that we posted has been misplaced. Not misplaced, but is at a different location to where you currently are.
Yeah,
And,
you can put it on me. That's not a problem.
It's not. I can't put it on Lewis because the last time was another technical issue, which is entirely on me. And this morning we're working around these tech issues. Anyway, thank you guys. I'm going to award you a medal. Never mind any medals for snipers, loss of limbs. Medal for working through the tech defects. Anyway, listen, guys, let's kick off. And Sam, we'll learn a little bit more about your early life, where you're from, how you came to join the military, and then we'll do the same with Lewis. So over to you, Sam.
Yeah, I'm from Accrington in Lancashire. Was born, working class family. Pretty normal upbringing. Went to school. Didn't really know what I wanted to do through life, but after leaving school, I went through a few various jobs. But ultimately, I'd always thought about the army, listening to my granddad's World War II stories, etc. So, yeah, that's what I did. I signed up and went down to careers office. They sort of pushed me down the Royal Engineers route, which I took. Went and did basic training. After that, I went to do Royal Engineer training. And yeah, decided ultimately after that to undertake P Company. So got through P Company and got assigned my regiment. It was 2-3 Engineer Regiment Air Assault at the time.
And just for listeners that don't know what P Company is the parachute regiment. So the Crimson Berets, did you say, Sam?
Maroon, yeah.
Maroon. Oh, balls. Sorry. I'm never going anywhere where the paras hang out now. Maroon Beret, which is, yes, a very coveted beret. And I've already asked you this, but which would you, for our listeners, which is harder, the Maroon Beret or the Green Beret of the Royal Marines?
Well, I've not done the All Arms Commando course, so I can't really comment on that. But P Company was bloody tough. Yeah,
pretty tough. I remember doing, I think probably the closest I ever got to anything like that was I think it was about a week. It was roughly a week, and it was called the SMAC course, which I can't remember what that even stands for. But on this course were Royal Marines, Parachute Regiment, and lots of other people, and it was to do with if you got shot down in enemy territory and you had that escape and evasion, would you be okay, basically? And one of the days involved probably what would have been like a warm up for P Company, a 20k run across some fields with a 16-stone dummy on a stretcher, having not eaten for a week, so pretty bedraggled anyway. But it was something like that. But that would have been a warm up for you guys, probably, would it? That sort of thing.
Yeah, there were lots of that. Probably the blokes making it twice as hard as well. So when you get to these units and everyone's substantially fitter, you've got to keep up with them. They're all machines.
Yeah, yeah, I know. Yeah, definitely. Thanks for that, Sam. How about you, Lewis? How did it all start out for you?
Growing up, not too different to Sam, really. Again, as you can probably tell, I'm from the north of England, so I grew up in Bolton, just a bit further south than Sam. Working class family, grew up having loads of fun on council estates in Bolton town centre. High school, always wanted to join the military. Didn't know what I wanted to do, but wanted to join the military. Didn't want to go to college or uni, but always had an interest in, anything that flew, really. Didn't think I'd be good enough or smart enough to be a pilot. So, disappeared off at 16, joined the army. Ended up as avionics technician, so working on weapon systems, solid electronics, basically anything on an aircraft that plugs in or has a button. That was it for me. I was the first in my family to join the military. I was REME Cat badged, which the beauty of that is you get to attach onto some pretty cool units and get to go some pretty interesting places just looking after the kit. So I had loads of fun.
Awesome. So 2 northern lads. I love the north. I'm from Derbyshire originally, which is pretty southern for you guys, probably, isn't it? But they still say up my duck there and things like that. So it's it's a lot more northern than where I am now down in Surrey. But I'll tell you another story. Walking into my local pub as a student at Salford. I was in Salford University. I went into this local pub and I said 3 pints of bitter, please. And a barman put 3 halves of bitter down on the bar and said, no, it's 3 pints, please. Now, I didn't know they didn't like students in this pub. He said, listen, I ain't got time for 3 pints. Drink up and F off. It was like a scene out of Shameless, Sounds
right.
But I do miss the north. So listen, guys. So Sam, you ended up getting your maroon beret. Very sorry about that. And Lewis, you're working with the REME in these sort of specialised aviation roles, which both sound very, very cool. And now I'd like to sort of fast forward a little bit to what then happens. Where your units went, and ultimately leading into your injuries, guys. So. If we can start with you again, Sam, what was the next stage then, having got your maroon beret?
Yeah, well, I joined. I went to upon receiving my maroon lid. I joined my regiment. Went off to Rock Barracks in Woodbridge in Suffolk. Joined 5-1 Parachute Squadron and knocked on Troop Commander's door, and he pretty much said, "Oh, you're one of the new lads. You're deploying. We're going to do a bit of pre-deployment training and you're off to Afghanistan." So wow. Straight into the thick of it. We did a bit of pre-deployment over in Kenya. And then, in 2010, September, we deployed to Afghanistan. Sort of engineers, our job role really was, we weren't infantry fighting as such. We were moving around and sort of maintaining defences, doing explosive entry, IED clearance, bridging rivers, etc. It was just under halfway through the tour. We'd moved out to a small checkpoint. You get these sort of big forward operating bases outside of Bastion, and then they go into small patrol bases further out from that. And then eventually you get to like these little checkpoints that are dotted around that might have literally a section of blocks in, 8 blocks. And we'd moved out to this checkpoint called CP Quadrat, which is in Nadi Ali, because they'd been getting hammered and they wanted like a vehicle entry point building to prevent the threat of a car driving in and essentially wiping them out.
Wow.
And yeah, we got there overnight, and it was pretty bumpy. There was a big firefight going on when we arrived. And then next day, yeah, we set out to work. I was top gunner on our vehicle. We had a Husky, and I was the machine gunner on the roof. And so the lads were working. I was stagging on, maybe like 100 meters, posted out from the blocks, overlooking this small village where they were expecting any sort of attack to come from, really. And it got there to early afternoon, and one of the guys was sort of flagging a bit. I said, why don't you come and watch the machine gun? I'll swap over and do a bit for you. And yeah, so we swapped over positions, and just as I'd arrived to where he was, that's I heard the shot, heard the distinctive crack, and my instant thought was that it felt like a sledgehammer had sort of hit me in the back, and I've gone to raise my rifle, it didn't come up, and I've looked down, and my sort of sleeves going red, my arm had just completely dropped. I was like, oh God, I've been shot. And yeah, that's when I shouted out, and that's a lot of my balance went at the same time. So I ended up hitting the deck, and I just couldn't get back up. Just, for love nor money, couldn't stand up. And he's still taking pop shots. Two of my mates ran out. They grabbed me by a lapel on my body armor each, and pulled me into cover. And yeah, this morphine quick clot, and the bullet. Basically, the day before, we'd got wind that there were two Russian Chechnyan snipers in the area, because Russians had sort of bounties on British troops, and it was basically one of these snipers had got me right between the gap in my plate carrier, my body armor, and my helmet. Small little gap, bullseye. It's gone through, cracked my spine, sheared off a bit of bone off the side, transverse process, and it came out my neck here at the front. And
wow.
I was very lucky. It messed up a nerve in my neck called the brachial plexus, which just paralyzed my right arm. That was the immediate effect. Got back through physiotherapy and a long process, but yeah, I was very lucky. So that was me medevaced back to the UK and recovery process from there on.
So, wow, unbelievable. I was just getting, I know even though we've chatted about it, I'm getting shivers down my spine listening to that. Sounds absolutely insane. And so was that a bit of a lucky shot on that sniper's part that it missed your body armor and happened to go through that gap that you mentioned?
Yeah, lucky, unlucky, however you look at it.
Yeah,
it hit me, but yeah, he didn't get his bounty.
Wow, unbelievable. And we'll talk more about the recovery process, Sam, in a little while, once we hear what happened to Lewis as well, because I think the recovery process after that initial injury oftentimes is much more challenging than that initial injury and the days that follow that. Thanks for sharing that absolutely insane story, and good job you got your mates were there to pull you out as well.
Yeah. Cheers.
How about you, Lewis? What was the lead up to your injury, and if you could let us know a little bit about your injury as well?
Yeah, I can't order light up to Sam's. I can't follow that. So my role at the time was our squadron was to support and provide reconnaissance and surveillance. So working outside the UK, but not Afghanistan. And it was ultimately to provide aircraft and to provide what we'd call overwatch, so that people operating on the ground have got a heads up as to what's going on, sort of bigger picture stuff. I think these days, I'm not plugged in anymore, but I think drones provide a lot of this, but there's nothing quite like having somebody up in the air who knows what you're trying to do, who can sort of point things out ahead of time. And ultimately, a situation developed where there was sort of a direct risk to the people working out on the ground. We needed to provide assets that weren't readily available. So the military, I think the same as flying aircraft, you've got a task or a line that you've got to meet. Something needs to happen, and you've just got to figure out how to get that provided as quickly as possible. And basically, in the process of providing this sort of Overwatch, my leg got trapped. So it wasn't ripped off. It wasn't sort of all blood, guts, and gore. It was just trapped, and a hell of a lot of pressure was applied to it. Got up, tried to walk on the leg, couldn't walk on it. Tried to get up again. The guy I was working with basically just put my arm around him and got me out of the way. Basically, down to the med centre, sent away for X-rays, which became MRIs, and it turned out that I'd damaged the bone. My injury's all below the knee, so I damaged the bone basically from halfway down my shin, down to my ankle, and the muscle, which, as you said, in time healed, but the nerve, so much damage was done to the nerve that I ended up with a foot that basically wouldn't function properly. So my feeling was all gone. I couldn't move it. I couldn't control the ankle myself. And then over time, the issue was because I wasn't using the foot and I wasn't walking around on it, it became worse. So I think over the period, I mean, it was probably around 3 years between Headley Court and hospitals. I think I had 12 surgeries to try and put it right. And the nerve just wasn't taking, just wasn't functioning. So it got to the point where your abilities are so limited. You have the conversation of electing to have your leg amputated, which is very different to the guys that get blown up and end up with injuries through that. I mean, explosive trauma is much difficult for surgeons and doctors to tidy up. So I was very fortunate in that way. And the same as you say with Sam, you always think how lucky you are that it wasn't much worse. So yeah.
Wow. And I guess as well, the mechanism of the injury from that sort of very, in the moment in Afghanistan for you, Sam, and how that happened, and more or less a routine, not getting shot at, but a routine thing. Do you think that the way that your injuries happen affects your recovery? I mean, it's hard to say because you both had different injuries and different mechanisms of how they were caused. But do you think it makes it easier, more challenging, or does it make any difference to your recovery, particularly psychologically, in terms of how you recovered from it?
I'm guessing so. I mean, I've always just seen as it's completely out of my hands, my injury. It's just something happened to me. And yeah, that's just the way I dealt with it. There's not much I could have done to, well, perhaps, I don't know, but yeah, it's just very much I was wrong place, wrong time. Yeah, I don't think the mechanism of it has really been a big factor, really. Just
And for you, Sam, I'm guessing after all the physio, was there a desire or a hope that you'd actually rejoin P Company and stay in the service, or did you know from sort of as soon as that injury happened, that's going to be my lot?
Well, my prognosis early on, I remember waking up in Queen Elizabeth II Hospital in Birmingham, and I'd just undergone some surgeries. So my family were there by that time, and the surgeon had come round, and I was, my arm was just completely paralysed, and he sort of said, like, your best prognosis is 50% functionality, like it might even degrade over time. So that was kind of limiting it right from the get-go, but it far exceeded that. Like my arm's fully functional, and I managed to get a Class 1 medical. So yeah, I'm very lucky.
Wow. But there was no scope for you to stay in the parachute regiment, for example, and continue your career there?
You eventually come to the physio process. It took me like 1.5, 2 years to get sort of most of my movement back in my arm, which is fine now. I had like nerve pain that carried on, subsided over over the years. But it took a long time to heal, and it's quite ill. And I think after 2 years, you sit on a med board, and they're like, right, where are you? Is it realistic you're going to join in your old role? And obviously, with my jumps course outstanding, that wasn't an option for me. So they offered me a job as a storeman.
It's not the
Yeah,
same.
it's not the
Not degrading as storeman role, but that's not the same as getting out there and doing a job that you trained for
exactly, yeah.
with your maroon lid, yeah.
And the alternative to that was a medical discharge,
Right.
which I took.
Yeah, I get that, and we've already had a bit of banter about the penguin nickname, haven't we? Because I can't even begin myself to actually banter you about this because you've done peak of you've gone to Afghanistan straight off the bat, which is mental. But that meant that you didn't actually get to ever jump out with a parachute.
Yeah, so there's a period of as the recruits come through and they've earned the Marine Beret and they're waiting the jumps course. It's normally like a month. They'll be in like be waiting for it, and they're known colloquially as penguins, flightless birds, and because of my injury and the timing, I was sort of stuck in limbo forever as a penguin. So yeah.
Well, maybe not. Maybe you could still go and do a parachute jump now if you wanted to.
Could do, yeah. I did my
maybe not out of a 737, but
hopefully not.
Have you done a parachute jump then? Have you managed to do that?
I got my skydiving air license a few years back, which was
amazing.
I think my own little way of settling everything.
Did you wear your maroon beret on the jump?
No.
Just for the gram. Yeah. Amazing. And I want to talk to you more a little bit about the sort of post-recovery and the psychological aspects of that in a moment. But Lewis, you were saying you had 12 operations on your leg in total.
Yeah, I think it was so. For the muscle and bone, I had surgeries to obviously get the bone to heal. The muscle, and Sam will know just as well, and probably yourself, is bone and muscle come back quite quickly. They grow really well, but the nerve grows in really peculiar ways. So I had, everything from grafts. I had a nerve graft from somewhere else in my leg. I had a nerve put in from somebody else. I had something called a Z plasty. So because my foot had been stuck in, basically as though I was stood on my tiptoes for so long, my Achilles had shortened, so they have to cut a Z shape into your Achilles and basically lengthen it and then stitch it back together. I had basically we just tried everything. Headley Court's great in terms of it gives you access to the best consultants that you could see truly for any injury, whether it's neuro injuries from bumping your head, hearing damage, eyesight, loss of eyesight. And ultimately, if the consultants aren't at Headley, they'll send you away to go and see the best in the field. And at the time, it didn't feel like there were any queues. It'd be recommended on, I think it was a Wednesday, that you'd see the consultant every week. And if the consultant turned around and said, right, you need to go and see. So I'd hurt my back at the same time. So I had surgery at the base of my spine and had a spinal cord stimulator put in.
Jeez. So
when that was recommended, I think it was recommended on the Wednesday. The referral went out probably the following day, and I was seen the following week in Oxford Hospital. So you're so well looked after. At least that was my experience of it. That if there is anything that they can see will not necessarily sort all your problems, but push you closer to being back functional, then they'll do it. There's no questions. There's no. It's as though there's no budget. There's no time constraints. If you need it, then they'll send you to go and get sorted.
Yeah, it's an amazing place, Headley Court, isn't it? We've all been there. I guess you went there as well, Sam, for your injury. I went there after 2 spinal operations as well, and but I always felt like a bit of a fraud because, sure, I had bad pain in my back and weird things going on with my legs because of the nerve things that you've both mentioned. And it's for people who haven't had those sort of sensations, it's hard to explain, isn't it? What they're like. They can be irritating to extremely painful to just meaning you can't control things properly. All sorts of things. But there were people there that, like you, Lewis, with limbs missing, like you, Sam had been injured in combat. I felt like a complete fraud because I just sort of hurt my back flying fast jets. But it was an amazing place. For you, Lewis, you mentioned that there was a period where you were like, right, I've had enough of these operations now, and that came on a family holiday. And that was your sort of ultimate decision to take the next ultimate stage. So would you mind explaining a little bit about what happened on that holiday?
Yeah, I mean, there's a bit of a warm up to it. You speak to Headley Court's not just about medicine and medical. There are people who talk to you about your future employability. There are people who talk to you about how your mindset is and what's going on at home. There's horticulture, so you can go and do a bit of gardening just to calm yourself down.
Yeah.
So it was actually my wife who said, so it was before I went in for surgery. I think it was L4, L5 at the base of my spine where the spinal cord stimulator went in. And the same with you could go into hospital to have your finger placed back into alignment and they'll give you the big list of all the risks from surgery, from you might get a headache to your arm might fall off. And obviously spinal surgery there's always a risk of damage to your spinal cord, which could leave you paralyzed from this or change your body functions. And I'm not a doctor, but L4 and L5 I think are responsible for your sex organs, your legs, and you're thinking
bladder and all sorts of stuff.
This could make my life much better, or I could be very upset. So my wife suggested we went away. Went to the Dominican Republic and stayed in a great hotel, really nice place. And I don't know if you've been to the Dominican, but marble floors in a humid climate is a disaster when you're on crutches. It's just so. They had a merengue night on a Wednesday. It was like a daddy and daughter's dance, and me and my daughter, she must have been probably about 9 at the time. So we'd sort of maybe a bit younger, about 8. So we got up to dance. Inevitably fell flat on my ass. Didn't hurt my leg, but fell like flat on my ass. Tail tucked between my legs, went and sat down, and we'd met another couple, a German couple actually, who had a little girl, and the guy comes over. I'm not going to do his accent, but he said, she can come and dance with us. There's always room for one more, and obviously you want her to have a good time, so you're like, yeah, go for it. And then you sat there, and you're torn because you want her to have a good time and go up and dance, but I'm stewing watching my daughter have a great time with another dad, and that. Yeah. I mean, I was in my 20s when I was in the military. Not so much now, but I was not in bad nick. I was a pretty fit lad. I was very proud. And then for the probably three days left in the holiday, you're turning it over in your head. How do I get out of this situation? How can I don't want to do it? Sounds a bit negative, but I don't want to do it like this anymore. How do I sort it? So the consultants at Headley, as we said, you see him, I think it's a Wednesday. You see him every Wednesday, and you sit down, and they can, because they see you so frequently, they can watch changes in your mood and how you talk and the way you say things. And you sit down, it's like, what are you thinking? It's like, well, we're not getting anywhere. I've had all these surgeries, and it was my 12th surgery, my amputation. I just said, I'm struggling now to, every time you have surgery, as you probably both well know, general anaesthetic, especially for me, it takes me probably about 3 months to start functioning properly again. Your head's a bit cloudy and everything feels a bit wishy-washy. So it basically got to the conversation was, I've had enough of every 3 months having surgery, getting myself back right, then having it again. And they said, we've been waiting to broach the possibility of amputation with you. And you sort of, it maybe took a breath for me to think, that's what I want to do, because Headley Court's brilliant for the banter. Everyone's winding each other up. Your injuries are pretendery compared to somebody else's, and everyone, it's like top trumps, but the other way around, where the joke is, you play your injury up, but in reality, everybody thinks that everybody else is much more seriously injured. As you said about you go there with a sore foot or a bad back, there's always somebody with a more complex injury.
But it's a great place for the banter, isn't it? Humor, military humor. The thing is, I have to temper it now. I have done for ever since a long time since I left. But it can be quite dark, can't it? Because it's how you make the best out of a bad situation. If the three of us were in the pub, we'd be having some banter. Other people are like, oh my god, those why are they even talking to each other? They obviously hate each other. You know what would you say? But it is like that, isn't it?
I remember arriving at Headley Court, and the very first thing I saw on the car park was one of the cars parked right outside, and the registration was no leg. I was like, what on earth? I hope that's not the doctor.
No, it was Lewis. His ego. He just needed it. He needed that reg.
Well,
he's got one on the front that says massive pecs as well. There you go. Didn't take long, did it? Yeah. So bringing it back to this sort of seriousness of the sort of recovery, we've got the injury, but like I was saying a little while ago, it's a psychological aspect of overcoming all these different things. And I'm not a father myself, Lewis, so I can't relate directly to that, but I can imagine how hard it must be when you've got a child, and like you say, because part of being a dad, but part of being in the military, it's all tied up in your identity, isn't it? I should be like this because I'm in the military, or I was in the military. I should be like this because I'm a dad, and then all of a sudden, that identity has gone. And I think Sam, you described part of that as well as like a sheer effect of leaving the military and joining, as we call it, Civvy Street. So, can you tell us a bit more, both of you, about this sort of sheer effect that you described, Sam, and how that feels?
Well, yeah, you sort of the whole process of discharge when you sort of say, right, that's what I'm doing. Yeah, I'll take the discharge, and you sign away, and it's really quick. All of a sudden, it's like, right, pack your room up, hand your kit in, and yeah, nice doing business. See you later.
Yeah,
and
it is.
That's what you do. You've literally got like a day to clean your room out, and you drive out of the camp gates for the last time, and you can't get back in, and that's where all your mates are. That's where your identity is as a soldier. That's who you are, and all of a sudden you're left. What do I do now? Like, where do I go? My sort of way of dealing with it was to I literally just drove up north to my parents' house. All my stuff in bags, obviously, and as far oh, everything's packed, so I just got a flight out and went traveling. It was
Where did you go to?
I got a flight over to Los Angeles, and then I just potted about the States for a few months, and then just continued that for quite a while. I think it was my way of dealing with it all, to be honest.
Yeah. But probably not fully understanding what was going on. One of the things I remember after leaving the forces was, like you said, go hand your ID card in, and like, can I have your ID card? So you're like, yeah, so here's your ID card. They're like, right, nice to see you then. And I'm like, but anything else? No. I'm like, I remember driving out of the gates at Yeovilton, run over there station. I'm looking back and going, well, that's a bit weird. I left way early, as lots of people do that get injured. But going, that is really weird, because everything I'd ever wanted to do was tied up in wanting to become a fighter pilot, which I did. Now, I'm not a fighter pilot anymore. I'm not even in the military anymore. A lot of people, no matter what, well, not for you guys, because the way you're injured, but for me, I always got a bit of a bad back, must be a bit of a malingerer, as they call it. So quite an odd set of circumstances. And Lewis, you said that a lot of your, understandably, your personality was tied up in this identity in the military as well. So is that something you found quite tough as you found your way out?
Yeah, it's like you said, your identity is the best way of hitting it. I loved rugby when I was in the army. I love boxing. It's a great way to get away from doing your actual job. So, and you're surrounded by people who think the same way as you and deal with things in a similar way. They're kind of like a support network,
Yeah.
for want of a better word. And once you're away, as Sam said, once you're out, the military's great at looking after you when you're in. Once you're out, the military's priority is the military, and you're not in the military anymore. So
Yeah.
you do struggle. And I think I was definitely hard work for Rach and the kids being at home without the military's good at giving you a purpose. If you're ever at work and you think there's nothing to do, the army will solve that problem.
Some
for
secondary
you.
duty and third duty.
Yeah, whiting stones or painting grass, whatever it is. So
Yeah.
And someone will have done that. Someone will have been
Oh,
told
yeah.
to go and paint some grass green at some point. Definitely.
Yeah. So yeah, you sort of lose your path a bit. I think traveling, I didn't do
Yeah.
that because I was married with a kid by that point, so I didn't get the chance to disappear off. But that's probably a great way. I think the army should definitely have a resettlement package that sends you away to South America for a few weeks on discharge.
Can you imagine? This is where we find out that Sam's actually got an alternate ego as an actor from LA. He's been in various movies. Yeah. Did you try that, Sam? Joking aside, did you think about the acting side of it?
Actually,
Put yourself forward.
in Texas,
Here we go.
I ended up couch surfing, and this bloke was like, "Oh, I've got acting class. Do you want to come down?" And so yeah, I went to an acting class. Funny enough,
There we go.
And,
there we go. What was the role?
I was. I ended up bottling
I'm not going to let this go.
I'll be honest. I ended up bottling it because they were doing this like whole emotional scene where they're like, this bloke's crying, and I'm like, I'm way out of my comfort zone. Like, but yeah, so it did happen.
So that was it.
Yeah,
it didn't happen. Oh, that's a shame. I thought I was going to go a lot further. I was like, I've got him here. I'm just going to reel this in a little bit. Do you reckon I'd love to do some acting? I think I'd be terrible at it, but it'd be good fun.
Yeah,
I think. Unless I just play some really, really odd role. But yeah, so I'll probably make a terrible actor. So guys, you both found yourself out of the force. So Sam's gone travelling, you're at home with a family. What happened then, and sort of leading into the most interesting part of this journey then, once you've left the military, is this introduction to Wings for Warriors, and you're both proudly wearing your polo shirts today. Fantastic organisation. So how did it come that you've gone on these paths, family time, out travelling, sofa surfing, acting, not brackets, not acting, and then you come to hear of Wings for Warriors? How did that come about?
Well, I was that travelling lasted quite a long time. After about 5 or 6 years,
Wow, was it?
Yeah, I'd been over Asia and Australia. I was actually living in Valencia in Spain at the time, and I'd started to notice as I was getting older. I'd gone through my 30th birthday, and the people I was hanging around with were more sort of like relaxed, but they weren't striving for anything, and that I'd really begun to miss having like a purpose or something. I'm still talking to my mates back home. They're like, "Oh yeah, I'm doing this job, looking," and they're all developing. "Oh, I've just bought a house and this," and I'm thinking, I need a challenge.
Yeah.
And another army mate of mine actually sent me a link to Wings for Warriors, and I took a look at the webpage and I thought, I very much doubt I can do it, but I'll give it a shot. Very similar to P Company. very much doubt I can do it, but I'll give it a go. And so yeah, I penned up my best, very empty CV, but quite a good covering letter, I hope. And they invited me into London for an interview and to just get to know me, I guess. And then that's how it all sort of fell into place. That's how I found the charity.
And had you had an interest in flying before hearing about the charity? Because Lewis had, but had you, apart from jumping out of an aeroplane with a parachute on?
not as such. To be honest, like I had been traveling, and I thought I'd chatted to people and said, it'd be amazing if there was a way I could carry on seeing the world and dipping my toes into all these different cultures, and then obviously being a pilot came up, but the cost of the training is it's a huge barrier for entry, isn't it? And
Yeah.
so yeah, it was Wings for Warriors was literally a dream come true. Absolutely.
And just to explain to listeners, Wings for Warriors was founded and still exists. In fact, growing rapidly. I saw royal stamp of approval from Her Royal Highness Princess Anne recently. Now it's a sort of training organisation, and exists to essentially help not just wounded veterans, anyone that are veterans that needs some support. Wings for Warriors is there to support them and get them into aviation careers. And how about you, Lewis? And how did you then come to hear Wings for Warriors?
I was kind of an add-on. Sam. So when I joined the charity, I think at the time there were 2 to 3 people a year they wanted to train. So take from being, and as you said, it's wounded, injured, or sick. So if you left the military for any reason due to health, didn't have to be combat injuries. Didn't even really have to be injured at work. If you were discharged from the military for medical reasons, then you were sort of eligible to apply to Wings Warriors. So at the time, when I left the military, I was working at Leonardo Helicopters down in Yeovil, and again, always fascinated with flying. So I was looking at self-funding. As Sam said, the financial barrier is huge. So it's, what can I get if I remortgage the house? In reality, you're looking at 120 grand plus living expenses, which it's not something I had. My parents couldn't really lend me the money or float me the money. So I reached out to a friend of mine he was a pilot and had become a pilot through Wings Warriors, who said, look, just reach out, get some information. So that's what I did. I messaged the charity director and just said, if you can point me in the right direction or let me know what the industry's up to, because I just had no clue. I didn't know if it was a good time to be training or a bad time. And he basically turned around and said, well, we've recruited our guys for the year. We don't have the funding to take on anybody else, but Sam and the other 2 guys that had been recruited at the time were going down to basically do airline assessment preparation. So he said, if you want to bolt onto the back of it, head down, see what you make of it, and see if it's for you. Obviously, jump at the opportunity, and then not long after, we all interviewed at the same airline, and it was basically supposed to be a look at the recruitment process, not an actual interview. Bear in mind, you're in a room. I was there on the same day as Sam with 50 other qualified pilots, some of them captains, a lot of them senior first officers, and me and Sam, who I'd never flown an aircraft in my life. So you sort of sit there thinking, I'm not in the right room here. And off the back of it, we obviously did well enough to be offered jobs, which I chatted to Mark and said that the charity, as you're explaining, the charity don't hold a big balance sheet. They don't have a lot of money in the bank. What happens is if an airline's interested in us, the charity will then go to other military charities, to regimental associations, local businesses, people who have got a bit of money and want to help veterans, and then generate your training fees that way. So it takes a little bit of time. We don't sort of set out with the money ready to go. That's pretty much where it started. So I kind of attached myself and followed Sam and then the other 2 guys in.
There should be a degree in life, I think, of just winging it. You know what I mean? We're just like, you can turn up to something and go, I really shouldn't be here, but I'm going to give this a go. Because I've made a career out of it. Literally. I came out of school with average GCSEs, below average A levels, winged it into a university degree course. I think the only reason I got on it was no one wanted to do it because it's such a miserable degree, aeronautical engineering. I should have had A's. I think I had D's or something like that, my A levels. And then and every step you're like, wow, how did I get there? How did that happen? For you guys, though, this charity has been an incredible leg up for you and for other veterans. What challenges did you find then as you sort of started your flying training? Was there anything? I'm thinking particularly with movement of your arm, Sam, and your leg amputation. were there any sort of challenges, physical and sort of psychological as well, going through your training outside of what most people in flying training might have?
Personally, it'd been a long time since I'd been injured, and I'd had a long time to recover. So the physical side of it, I was ready for. Initially, as part of getting my Class 1 medical, I had to do a medical flight test. Did that down at Manchester Barton, which is where I did my PPL, actually, part of my flight training. And yeah, they signed me off fit to fly. I found it sort of difficult going from this sort of like sedentary, lazy lifestyle to like, right, get the cogs ticking again. I've not used my brain for anything challenging in years, and yeah, I found that quite tough. But yeah, I've enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. It's rewarding.
How about you, Lewis? And particularly with your amputation, what were the limitations there? And thinking about things like, because as non-pilots in the room won't know about how brakes are actuated on a commercial airline. So I haven't asked you this. I'm genuinely interested. So to activate brakes on an aeroplane, there's 2 pedals, and you have to push down on both pedals. If you only push on one, then the brake on one side of the aeroplane will work, and the other side won't. The aeroplane will turn around. So, what have been the limitations regarding your injury and your flying training and any current career?
Yeah, you're definitely right about the braking. The 7.3 will let you know very quickly if you're pressing one harder than the other. So, as Sam said, I had to go and do a medical flight test, and I have to do that on any type I fly. So, if I move from the 7.3 to the 7.8 to any other aircraft type or variant, I'll have to go. Obviously, it's going to happen in the sim as opposed to on the live aircraft. And demonstrate that I can, one, operate the rudder pedals with enough force during asymmetric flight or rejected takeoffs, and that I can operate normally using brake pressure. So for myself, the limitation is ultimately knowing how much pressure I'm applying and doing that equally. And because I'm not pressing the pedals with my ankle on the right-hand side, that force is coming through my knee, really. So my ankle's fixed on the right hand side, so I need to press on the pedal with as much force as I'm pressing on the left by actuating my ankle. And I went in with a very senior captain at my company into the simulator, and the conversation, as daft as it sounds, was basically, you need to prove that I can't operate this aircraft, because that's only then will I be confident enough and my company be confident enough and we always prepare and train for the worst scenarios, that with asymmetric, so with one engine not operated and the aircraft wanting to turn naturally due to one engine pushing and one engine not, and me putting the rudder in, I can still operate the brakes to get the aircraft to stop, which we did. So I feel the brakes a little bit different to yourselves, or I feel the brakes on the right different to the way I feel the brakes on the left. Thankfully, I can operate it. I'm in the sim next week, actually, so we'll find out whether I can still do it.
Every 6 months, no pilot looks forward to that, do they?
I know. 2 days of Sam's just had it. 2 days of fun. So I think. But in truth, when you asked that question, my mind went to ATPLs, because that was the biggest challenge for me.
Right. The ground exams, for people who don't know what that is. Yeah.
So I'm not a whiz at maths. I can do the maths that's relevant to my job, and I've got good at that. But when it comes to calculating how far a radio will transmit in terms of distance across the ground at 34,000 feet I made a lot of notes.
Transmit, does it work? Does it work? Yeah, it works. No, it doesn't work. Oh, we're too far away. Should we try again in a bit?
Exactly.
Yeah. Great. And both of you, ultimately, having gone through that selection process and then your training, you're now commercial pilots, both flying the 737 and flying the public around the world. I mean, what an incredible journey, and obviously no small part due to your own determination and psychological strength to get over your injuries and what happened. And even you say, Sam, I went away for 5 years and wasn't really doing much, but actually that was part of your recovery, and you obviously needed that time. So I think the psychological impacts that these two injuries and events had on both of you, you've both been able to overcome that, which is incredible. And with the support of this amazing charity, Wings for Warriors. And so, as I said just a few moments ago, Wings for Warriors has now got the royal sort of seal of approval. What's happening with the charity right now, guys?
So they've just opened a flight school down in Gloucester, quite close by. Gloucester Council have allowed them use of a small house, which has become like a bit of a base for the
Amazing.
for the veterans going through training. And yeah, I think the plan is to start this training in house, bring the cost down a bit, and then they can offer it to more veterans.
Yeah, fantastic. How many veterans has the charity trained so far? Do you know off the top of your head, even roughly?
I think there are. There's a veterans who, when the charity was originally started, it was actually started for rotary wing work. So
Right.
it started up in Aberdeen. The charity director is a helicopter pilot.
Yeah.
So rough numbers, I think 3 went to fly rotary wing, and I think that there are now 5 of us. No, there are 6 of us at our company. So there are 6 of us flying the 737. Oh, one's just gone to the 78 actually. So there are,
Wow.
yeah,
Amazing.
ultimately, yeah, there are about 10 in total, with a view to more. And as you said, as Sam was saying, with the Veterans Flying School, the aim now is to make something more of a set official pathway as opposed to taking ladies and gents on and then looking at the funding for them. Is having something more of a pathway to get more veterans into the airlines and into flying jobs.
Incredible. Amazing work that it's doing. And do you love the job, guys? You genuinely love it. I mean, we started, before we even started recording today, we're having a few tech snags, as I said, and Sam said to me, he said, I know belt over landing yesterday. And to me, a belt over landing means absolutely stuck in it in. But a belter in Accrington means a really nice, smooth landing. He's very proud of it. I can say he's very proud of that.
Yeah, it's a good feeling, isn't it?
It is a good feeling,
especially at this stage in the game. I'm still learning most flights.
Yeah.
When it all comes together, you're like, oh, this is what the training's doing.
Yeah, absolutely. It is. But you love it, do you guys?
Yeah, it's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant.
What are your aspirations moving forward? Where do you see yourself in the next sort of? It's not an interview question. It is an interview question, as it turns out. But where do you see yourself in 5 years, sort of time? If you could map that out now.
Obviously, I am still new. I've got a lot to learn, and I think as I sort of gather that experience and knowledge, I'd perhaps like to give back. I'd love to give back when that time comes. So perhaps going down a training, see how I can give back to the charity as well, because what they've done is literally life changing.
Yeah.
See what the future brings.
Fantastic. How about you, Lewis?
We all think the same. I think most veterans have got that like-mindedness. Is you walk down the route and you get into the job, and then you want to be competent at the job you do, but you're also looking back at how you can help the next guys and girls come through the same route. So the same as Sam, I think we've all done the same. We've offered our time back to the charity. The flying school's only just getting up and running, so I think between us, I worked on aircraft for a while, so the aircraft general knowledge section is probably one of my stronger suits. So it's just being able to look back and think, right, someone's done something amazing for me. How can I basically make it a bit easier, or help the next sort of guys come through?
We're both such fantastic role models, and and for lots of people as well. So we're chatting about your upbringing as well, from Accrington and Bolton and working class families, joining the military. A lot of, as I say, the financial barrier can be something that just inhibits very competent people getting into this role. So for young people from working class families, that can often be something that just is beyond them, certainly in the short term. And then injuries as well that you both overcome. And for you, Lewis, as well, as a person of colour, it's, I've flown with, I've spoken about this many times, 3 black pilots, I think, in 20 years in an airline career. So having that visibility as a person of colour as well must be a real inspiration to so many people. And is that something that you see yourself as a real visible role model to people wanting to get into the career as well?
I mean, it's not. I don't really look at myself that way, if I'm honest. Last year actually for Black History Month, we did a number of flights with an all-black crew. And when the email came out, sort of asking if anybody was interested in doing it, I sat down with my wife, and my wife's white, and just said, I don't know how I feel about it, because obviously I'm proud to be doing the job.
Yeah.
And obviously I'm from a minority background, but I don't want the world, from my perspective, without turning this into some sort of philosophy thing, is I think the best person for the job should always get the job, irrespective as to whether
100%.
you're male, female, whatever your sex might be, or your colour, where you come from, where you grew up. The best person for the job should get the job. And I honestly, in my military career, don't think I've ever been discriminated against for one, where I come from, because a lot of the military's sort of from working class backgrounds, council estates, or for my colour, or I'm not religious, but I don't honestly think I've been discriminated against, other than if I've been an idiot, and rightly so. But what I honestly think that the thing that holds people back is yourself. It's young lads like me, Sam, and the people who grew up where we do, thinking airlines aren't going to be interested in us because you assume that the airlines will hire from the RAF, so very well educated, they come from very good backgrounds, without making it a stereotype, and you sort of rule yourself out of the running. Where the reason I chose to do the Black History Month flights, and I was very proud of it, was not to sort of put out into the world that we want all black crews to be a normal thing, but we wanted people, young black lads and ladies, to look at that and go, actually, if they can crew a 787 and a 737 with an all black crew, then obviously the opportunity exists for me to do the job. Yeah. And if it does, you head out, don't you, just to try and make things better for just one person. So if one person like Sam or like me in Accrington or Bolton or anywhere looks at that and thinks, do you know what, I don't think I'll be able to do that, but if these 2 Muppets can do it, then I'll put my name in the hat. And the airlines, I'm not in recruitment, but the airlines love diversity, because it gets people talking and asking questions and seeing things from different perspectives. And for the military and for our job now, you need that. So ultimately that's the reason I did it, is because I don't want it to be an all black crew. That's not what the message was. It was just a case of black people can fly planes, black people can crew planes. So put your name in the hat, and if you are the right person for the job, you get the job. You will be hired, no matter where you come from.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks for such an articulate description there of what that Black History Month flight meant for people, because it's true. It's not just about people of colour. Speaking about people from working class backgrounds, who say different religions, gender identities, sexual orientations, but the majority of pilots at the moment still fall into one demographic. And there's, I think the message for me is, if you are, in the majority, which seems to be straight white men from the pilots I fly with, that doesn't mean that you're not going to get the job. But equally, if you're from one of the more minority pilot groups, actually the opportunities are there. But as you correctly said, Lewis, and I do see a lot of quite harmful content actually online. I think, we've got platforms like this which can push really positive messages, as you're both doing so brilliantly today. But it can also be used as a bit of a harmful thing. And from my experience, it is the most competent people that get through. It doesn't matter where they're from, and there's obviously levels of competence, isn't there? But the message is that you should be able to give it a go. But if the visibility isn't there, then a lot of people think it's not achievable. I mean, even you were saying that earlier, Sam, I'm thinking, and I think you said it as well, Lewis, I didn't think that this was achievable for me, so that's why I didn't actually go for it. But here we are, and it is 100% achievable. So thanks ever so much for pushing that positive message. Guys, moving into the end of this podcast now, I want to jump into our winging it question. And so random question. Each of you get the same question, so that's good news. So we'll start with you, Sam. And this will give Lewis a little bit more time to think about this. So Sam looks at the most nervous ever. Put my Top Gunner on a machine gun out in Afghanistan. Not nervous. Nah. Sent me around the world for 5 years, acting class, not nervous. Winging it question.
Yeah, what's coming?
Right, so you're clearly both very brave men. But what's one weird thing that you're afraid of, Sam?
Oh, put me on the spot there.
That's the idea of it.
What am I afraid of?
Is that I can't say it. I know what it is. I can't say it because if everyone knows I'm afraid of this thing.
I'll tell you one thing, bit corny, but throughout this sort of flying journey, learning, I was always very conscious that good people have put their hard-earned money behind my training, and I put a lot of extra pressure on myself through the flying lessons, through the exams, thinking I really don't want to let these people down. And that is definitely I'd say that was a fear of not making it through and being wasteful or ungrateful or appearing ungrateful. Let's say.
So imposter syndrome, which actually
Perhaps.
lots of people I've spoken to have spoken about. One of my good mates is a test partner F-35, and he said the whole time, total imposter syndrome. Now, what am I doing as one of the lead test pilots on this brand new generation aircraft? Landing it, he was the first lander on Queen Elizabeth. He's like, what am I doing landing an F-35 on Queen Elizabeth? And it was just imposter syndrome. So I get that. So there's nothing weird. I mean, see, me, it is spiders. I feel bad for them because they're just creatures, right? But I cannot put a spider. I will say to him, if you put that spider near me, I cannot be responsible for my actions because it's irrational. Nothing else weird. What about you, Lewis?
You put me in a great position there because Sam went first. So, but it plays as he answered. It got me thinking, and as you said, there's 5 of us with the company, 6 of us, I think, now actually, and we're quite new to this. So the majority of us have only really joined the company over the past couple of years. And you're afraid, kind of like Sam was saying, of people are watching you because you are veterans, you do have injuries, and you do want to do a good job because you don't want the door to slam behind you. You basically don't want airlines and recruiters to look and go, it didn't really go well for those guys. So it's not so much that imposter syndrome, but you don't want to. I think that's every pilot's fear, is you don't want to mess it up because you don't want to look bad, and you don't want it to basically be more of a challenge. You want the airlines to look and go, we need more of these guys to come and bring their stuff to the company. So yeah,
so is that Pathfinders, really, isn't it? At the moment, you're sort of like carving out this path, and you're at the spearhead of it. And what happens? Yeah, I get that. It's a weight of responsibility almost, isn't it? But you're doing it. And Sam had a great landing yesterday, so
no pressure.
That's it now. There'll be no more.
Yeah,
as soon as you say it, you'll have a year of bad landings.
Yeah.
It's like a curse of the bad landings. Great, guys. Thank you so much. I know there's a few other people you probably want to say thanks to, not least Lauren, as Sam's wife, and Rachel, your wife. Lewis, I'm sure your families have been immense support to you. So any messages for them, obviously you'd like them to hear, please feel free to put those out now. But anyone else that you'd like to make special mention of before we close this up?
Yeah, as you mentioned, my partner Lauren, she's supported me all the way through this, right from PPL lesson 1, and over the course of this last sort of few years, we've got 2 children, a little boy William and a little girl Lila. And when I'm away, down route, she's looking after the house and the family, and yeah, she's working just as hard as I am. The charity I've got to thank, they've literally changed my life. And the people that have given money to the charity, and the Royal Engineers Association that has part funded my training. There's just so many amazing people along this journey that have made it all possible. So yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Sam. How about you, Lewis?
Yeah, same for me. Rachel, my wife, has sort of held the fort whilst I've been away doing my flight training. I was with Sam down in Gloucester, and we know how difficult it is from when we're away from home, so it is appreciated. The same for the charity. I wouldn't be here and I wouldn't be flying these aircraft without them. It simply wouldn't have happened, especially not the way it has. And then, as Sam said, anyone who's donated and put money into my training, because I think a lot of people are a bit dubious with charities. They don't know where the money goes, and it's difficult to prove and to find out. So, from my point, I can say that the money that was donated for my training definitely came to my training. So thank you very much. And again, the Veterans Flying School, the aim of the Veterans Flying School in the future isn't just to train injured servicemen and women or veterans. It's to try and open the doors to the fringes of society, the people, as I say, council estates, people who are homeless through whatever reason, or people who've had difficulties, who probably make fantastic pilots, but the path just isn't. Well, the path's there, but it's not very easy to walk it. So anybody who has the ability to and has the want to basically, whether that's through assistance with flight training or basically anything that they can offer to the Veterans Flying School to help the next generation of servicemen and women who are leaving the military through injury, wounded, injured or sick. I think with Afghanistan and Iraq not being sort of talking points on the news anymore, people, again, it's through no fault of their own, people aren't aware that servicemen and women are getting injured just doing their day jobs, getting injured training, getting injured away doing rehearsals and exercises. So there are still lots of people who are getting injured in the military who do want careers in aviation, and it's a life changer. I've sort of gone from leaving the military and Sam has wandering around trying to figure out what you're going to do to fly in. I don't know how many people we've flown over the past 12 months, but yeah, the charity's out there, and it'd really benefit from anybody's help. So
fantastic.
Thanks.
Thank you so much, guys. Where can people, if they do want to donate to the charity, is there a place where they can easily do that? Do you know?
Yeah, it's Wings for the number 4 Warriors. I believe it's .org.
Okay,
Wings,
I'll put a link in the
4
episode
Warriors.
description so that people can find that link. And also, there's if you're enjoying this episode, I do have a little thing called Buy Me a Coffee, which is just to try and cover some of the costs of these episodes. That's all it is, and for listeners. And some people do contribute regularly, very small amounts. But if anyone's listening to this episode and puts, this is to thank you for the Wings for Warriors episode, then whatever that money is that comes in, even if it's a £5, I'll put that into the charity as well. So if anyone's listening and wants to do that as Buy Me a Coffee, then I'll send that money directly through to the charity as well. But I'll put a link in the episode description so that people can leave that. As if it was needed, any more final words of inspiration you'd like to put out there, guys, into the ether for eternity, or as long as the internet stays up?
Probably forgot to add on, thank you to you as well. Thank you for having us on.
Oh, thank you, Guy. I say we've had a lot of tech issues around, for whatever reason, gremlins around this recording, and you guys have been incredibly patient. So thank you so much for everything. I really do appreciate it, guys. Hope we can meet up in person or hear you on the airwaves one day and say hello to you on a frequency somewhere. That'd be nice.
Strong northern accents.
Yeah,
listen out.
Yours a bit stronger than mine. I've found myself sort of slowly moving into a bit more. They're going to have some time to eat, a bit more of that. But but I'm not fully there.
No.
You guys, definitely, yeah. All right, guys. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. Cheers.